You know the feeling, right? You're staring at a project status report, and it's just a sea of green lights telling you everything's on track. But you know, deep down, that something's not quite right. Today, we're going to dive into that exact problem, how to see past the pretty dashboards that just don't tell the whole story. So you've got to ask yourself this question. Is that comforting green light just a mask? Is it hiding some deep, fundamental issues that are about to blow up your budget and your timeline? This is such a classic problem, especially in big, complex construction projects. And yep, there's a perfect name for it, the watermelon project. It looks all healthy and green on the outside, looks great in the status reports, but you cut that thing open and whoa, it is bright red on the inside. Total crisis mode. So today, we're going to figure out how to spot these things, and even better, how to stop them from happening in the first place.
All right, so here's our plan. First, we'll really get into the weeds on this whole watermelon problem. Then we'll talk about leading versus lagging indicators, super important stuff. After that, we'll look at some tools for real forecasting, learn how to turn that data into a story that actually gets people to act, and finally, we'll talk about shifting our whole mindset from just reporting to what we call directive control.
Okay, so let's start with the root cause here. You know them, you've seen them. Those simple red, amber, green dashboards. The RAG status. They're supposed to make things simple, right? Give you a quick glance. But way too often, they oversimplify things so much that they're actually dangerous.
And believe me, this isn't a new problem. This quote right here shows people were complaining about this decades ago. Project managers are just drowning in data, but they are starving for actual insight. The reports are too big, they're too late, and honestly, they're focusing on all the wrong things.
I mean, just look at a typical report like this one. It's this dense table of numbers from last week. Sure, there's data in there, but what is it really telling you? It's just a snapshot of what's already happened. It's a history lesson.
And that's the key thing, isn't it? This type of reporting is 100% reactive. It's basically like trying to drive a car by only looking in the rearview mirror. Yeah, it tells you exactly where you've been, but it gives you absolutely zero warning about the cliff you're about to drive right over.
So to fix this, we need to completely flip our perspective. We have to stop measuring failures that have already happened and start measuring the things that will predict future success. And that, my friends, is the huge difference between leading and lagging indicators. So let's break this down. On one side, you've got your lagging indicators. These are the results, the outcomes, things like cost overruns or safety incidents. They tell you failed after the fact. But on the other side, you've got leading indicators. These are the proactive things you're doing now. Think about stuff like your near-miss reporting rate or how consistently you're completing safety inspections. They measure the health of your process, not just the final score.
And this right here, this is the perfect example of why this is so critical. You could be looking at a fantastic lagging indicator, like a low number of safety incidents, and think, hey, we're doing great. But under the surface, your leading indicator, the rate of near-miss reporting, is dropping like a stone. That's not a success story. That is a massive, flashing red light. It probably means your team has stopped speaking up, and that's creating the perfect environment for a huge disaster.
Okay, so we get it. We need to look forward. But how? How do we actually do it? Well, let's get into our next section and check out the toolkit that gets us from looking at the past to actually predicting the future.
The foundation for all of this is a technique called earned value management, or EVM. Now, it sounds complicated, but it's basically just asking three simple questions. 1, how much work did we plan to do by now? 2, how much work did we actually do? And 3, how much did it actually cost us? Comparing the answers gives you a totally objective look at how you're doing. But here's the catch. Even the standard EVM metrics, things like CPI, your cost performance index, and SPI, your schedule performance index, even those are still looking backwards. They're fantastic for monitoring, for telling you how you got here, but they aren't directive controls. They don't help you steer the ship.
Which, of course, brings us to the next big question. If basic EVM is just a slightly better rearview mirror, how do we finally start looking through the windshield?
Well, the answer is a really cool extension called earned schedule. See, instead of saying you're, $50,000 behind schedule, which is kind of abstract, earned schedule puts it in terms of time. It lets you say, okay, it's August, but we've only finished the work we were supposed to have done back in June. Now that is an insight you can actually do something with.
And it's just the start. The real power comes when you get into forecasting. You've got your estimate at completion, or EAC, which predicts your final cost based on how you're doing right now.
You've got the time estimate at completion, or TEAC, which does the same thing for your end date. And you can combine all that with stuff like resource heat maps to see where your teams are getting overloaded before it creates a bottleneck. Now this is what we mean by directive control.
Okay, so having all this amazing predictive data is one thing, but getting leadership to actually understand it and, more importantly, act on it, that is a whole different ballgame. And that's where we have to stop just dumping data and start telling a story.
And this isn't just some soft, fluffy skill. As the Institute of Project Management says, storytelling is a core competency. It's how you turn all those numbers and charts into a compelling narrative that actually gets senior leaders to make the tough calls.
And here's the playbook for how to do it. You don't just show up with the raw numbers. First, you show the trends. Are we slipping faster this month than last month? Then you explain why. What's the root cause? And here's the most important part. You show up with decision-ready scenarios. Like, okay, option A costs this much and gets us back on schedule. Option B is cheaper, but we have to accept a later finish date. You guide them to a decision.
When you do this, something magical happens. The whole conversation shifts. Leadership stops poking holes in your data and starts debating the actual strategic choices you've laid out for them. You build trust, and you become a strategic partner instead of just the person who brings the bad news.
All right, let's bring it all home. What we're really talking about here is a total transformation in what project reporting is even for. It's about turning it from a chore into a proactive, strategic asset that actually helps you win.
I mean, the difference is just night and day. The old way is all about looking backwards. It asks, what happened and whose fault is it? It's just a history book. The new way, strategic forecasting, is all about the future. It asks, what's going to happen if we stay on this path, and what can we do about it? It's a tool for shaping what comes next.
So the bottom line is this. When you build this capability, your whole reporting culture can become your most powerful tool. It's not just some historical archive you have to maintain. It becomes the engine that drives proactive control over your projects.
So I'll leave you with this one question to take back to your team. Take a hard look at the reports you make and the ones you read. Are they creating a strategic asset that helps you shape the future? Or are they just building a really detailed record of your past mistakes? The answer to that question could change everything.